In the dimly lit chamber, a cloaked man knelt at the center, his voice trembling as he reported the mission's utter failure. The observers, seething with rage, demanded an explanation. They accused him of underestimating the task, letting his guard down. Gritting his teeth, the man insisted it was all because of Ghislain Perdium. The observers scoffed, questioning if he meant that worthless bastard from the north. One of them sneered and mocked the man for using such a pathetic excuse. But the cloaked figure shook his head, explaining that Ghislain was nothing like the rumors or intelligence they had gathered. He recounted the shocking events, how Ghislain had wielded mana to slay the two henchmen in an instant, then erupted with an overwhelming surge of power to defeat Frank outright, before incinerating all traces of evidence. It was as if Ghislain had become an entirely different person overnight. Shifting to the aftermath, the man assured them he had already smoothed things over with the Degard family, ensuring no obstacles to igniting the territorial war. He begged for one more opportunity to make it right. The observers erupted in outrage, calling for his immediate elimination. How could they trust someone who botched such a simple assignment and failed to gather basic intel on a mere kid? Suddenly, a commanding voice cut through the chaos. Count Desmond, seated regally in his chair at the head of the room, expressed his irritation at the noise, instantly silencing the group. With a measured tone, he asked what kind of chance the man was seeking. Nervously, the man replied that he would eliminate Ghislain personally. Desmond pressed for details on how he planned to do it. The man outlined his scheme. He would orchestrate a natural duel with someone perfectly suited for the job. When Desmond inquired who, the man revealed it was Cain Loges, renowned for his brute-strength swordsmanship and unmatched power despite his youth. No one in the north could stand against him, he claimed. Plus, as Ghislain's cousin, arranging their encounter would be seamless. A heavy silence fell over the hall. After a tense pause, Desmond warned that failure this time would mean no mercy, no next chance. The man bowed deeply, vowing not to disappoint. Meanwhile, at Perdium Castle's training hall, Fergus stepped onto the grounds to remind Ghislain that mealtime was approaching. But before he could speak, a shimmering mana thread snatched a sword from the entrance and pulled it straight into Ghislain's grasp. Ghislain swung the blade experimentally, nodding in satisfaction that it would suffice. Spotting Fergus, he greeted him casually. Fergus bowed slightly, apologizing for the interruption during training. His curiosity got the better of him, however. He asked how Ghislain had performed that feat. Ghislain let the sword drop, leaving it suspended mid-air by the mana thread, and clarified if he meant this technique. He called it a mana thread, describing it as shaping mana into a flexible string for manipulation. In his mind, he reflected on how he had relied on it constantly in his past life. But now, with his limited mana reserves, he had to optimize it, imploding his core for bursts of efficiency, allowing him to wield it even with less power overall. Fergus admitted that despite his own long years of mana training, he had never witnessed anything like it. Privately, he wondered how Ghislain, who hadn't even bothered with mana or training just weeks ago, could innovate such an advanced method. Ghislain sensed the unspoken thoughts and asked if Fergus had something else to say. With another slight bow, Fergus expressed his deep gratitude for Ghislain protecting the young lady Elena. But Ghislain brushed it off, saying it was simply what needed to be done, no thanks required. He gestured for Fergus to join him as they headed off to eat. A few days later, the festival had been halted in the wake of the near-fatal incident involving Elena. In the dining room, Elena tapped the table in frustration, complaining that no one believed her when she insisted Ghislain had been her savior. She urged him to speak up and set the record straight, but Ghislain shrugged, noting that they wouldn't believe him either way. Belinda clenched her fists in anger, declaring that she had always known Jamal and Philip were nothing but perverts. Ghislain sat quietly, a small smile on his face, content that Elena had survived and that he had thwarted the war's ignition, for now. Yet he knew the plotters wouldn't relent. Stopping them alone wasn't feasible. He needed to build his own military force. Lost in thoughts of entering politics to achieve his goals, he barely noticed the maid placing a covered dish before him. Lifting the lid, he stared in shock at a single loaf of bread. He asked Belinda why dessert was coming first, but she reminded him sternly of their dire financial straits. Just then, a loud clamor erupted from outside the window, jolting Ghislain. Peering out, he saw a portly merchant at the castle gates, bellowing for compensation over the festival's abrupt cancellation. A crowd of other merchants backed him, their shouts growing heated as guards tried unsuccessfully to quell the unrest. Belinda sighed, explaining that she had anticipated this. The county relied heavily on merchants who thrived during the festival season, and ending it after just one day was bound to spark fury. Ghislain turned to her, asking just how bad the county's finances were. Glancing back at the escalating scene, he realized inaction would only make things worse. He called out to Fergus, questioning what the soldiers were doing and ordering them to disperse the crowd. But Fergus revealed the shocking truth. There were no soldiers available. Gislin's eyes widened as Fergus elaborated. They had all been redeployed to reconstruct the monster forest outpost after the devastating orc raid. Perdium County was perpetually on the brink of conflict, sandwiched between northern barbarians and the unpredictable monster-infested forest. With no funds and no guards, they were in a precarious bind. Gislin pulled Belinda aside, draping an arm around her shoulders in a familiar way, and asked if she could dip into his managed funds to placate the merchants. She shook her head. No such funds existed. Confused, he demanded why not. Belinda reminded him that the Count had slashed his allowance after his reckless spending habits. Realization dawned on Gislin. He was completely broke. Shamelessly, he asked her to lend him some money, but she insisted she had none to spare. The scene shifted to Gislin perched frustratedly on the windowsill, muttering to himself about their lack of resources. No money, no soldiers. What did they even have left? Even with his foreknowledge from the future, without basics like funds, he was powerless. His brooding was interrupted by Ricardo bursting in, panting and calling his name urgently. Gislin asked what the trouble was. Still catching his breath, Ricardo warned that young Master Kane wanted to see him. Gislin's face registered shock at the mention of Kane's name. Outside a nearby tavern, a battered Scoven staggered, his face smeared with blood. Kane delivered a brutal punch to his jaw, followed by a crushing blow to the chest, sending Scoven crumpling to the ground with a pained groan, right at Gislin's feet as he arrived at the entrance. Scoven, his features swollen and distorted, weakly called out to Gislin in agony. Rage ignited in Gislin's eyes at the sight. Kane turned his attention to him, smirking as he loomed imposingly, with an aura of menace. He greeted his cousin mockingly, looking down with evident disdain.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this manhwa recap and want to catch the next chapter, smash that subscribe button, like, and hit the notification bell. Got a favorite manhwa you'd love to see recapped? Drop it in the comments below and I'll see you in the next one.